Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Smaldone here, and what we're going to do is review a few things about this handout that we started talking about last week, and I'm going to basically reveal some things about it so that we can use this video to take the place of some class time, because we have a lot of stuff left to cover. So let's take a look at the Schubert first. So the piece starts in E minor. Now those four chords are really ending with a half cadence. So that's a phrase that's 4 bars long and then gets to the 5. So it starts on the tonic and then it gets to the 5. And how does it get to the 5? It gets to the 5 by way of the 2, 6, 5, and that's the half diminished 6, 5, because the 2 chord in the minor mode, and actually I should have made that a lowercase 1, sorry. So it starts on the 1, the 2 is a half diminished 7th chord in first inversion, then this is the 7 diminished 7 of 5 followed by 5. And that's how we get to the 5 area. And then you can see that at this point where the voice comes in, so at that, so all of this is an expansion of the 5. And all of that, you can see the notes go 6, 4, and then they come back to 5, 3, and I apologize for all the shadows. This light is not in the best place. So it goes 6, 4, then 5, 3, and then back to 6, 4, and then back to 5, 3. And then at that point, that 5 chord gives way to a dominant 7th chord, which is the 5 of A, but it's the 5, 7. We're going to call this the 5, 7 of 2, because, and we don't know that at the moment, because right at this moment we're hearing this as E minor, and if we did that as a 5 of A and continued to a cadence in E minor, then this would be the 5 of 4. But because we look ahead and we see that so we see that we have a cadential 5, 6, 4 followed by a 5, 3 to a 1 in the key of G major. 5, 1 in the key of G major. And because of that, I'm going to go way back here. I'm going to call this the pivot chord, so that in G major, that's the 5, 7 of 2, followed by the 2, then by a 2, 6. 2, 6 is actually more common than the 2 in root position. By the way, we can identify this as lowercase e minor. So we're in the key of E minor, and then we have this progression in E minor. We get to the 5. We establish the key with its dominant, this expansion of the dominant. Then instead of resolving back to the tonic, which would be E minor, that E is transformed into a dominant 7th chord, which is the dominant 7th of A, no matter how you slice it. But this A is on its way to being a 2, 5, 1 in the key of G. All right? And then we have this funny thing here where we get to G, first of all. So that chord, if we untangle it, is a diminished 7th chord with an F sharp, a C, and a D sharp. That probably should be spelled as an E flat. I'm going to have to check the Schubert to see if he does that. But it is the dominant 7, it's the 7 diminished 7 over a tonic pedal. So that tonic pedal in the bass stays the whole time. So that's the tonic pedal. And the function of this diminished seventh chord is as the leading tone seventh chord that resolves to that chord. And that's distinct from the common tone diminished seventh chord, which is the other kind that we've been talking about, and we'll review that in the next video. But now we have this diminished seventh chord over the tonic pedal. You can maybe put tonic pedal, all the way through to that point. And another 7, diminished 7 over the tonic pedal. And then this chord is a leading tone to E minor. So, and that's the dominant seventh chord of E minor, which is the 5, 6, 5 of 6 in the key of G. And when we hear that, we kind of don't know whether that's the 6th chord. Wait a minute, this one. When we hear this one, we're not sure if that's the 6th chord in G or something else, but because we have this progression here that goes E minor, C major, which is really the 6, and then the 2, half diminished 7, 6, 5, 5, 1. Now we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of C. Now, by the way, we had a PAC over here. This was also a PAC in the key of G. But then we have a PAC in the key of E. So we would call this the 5, 6, 5 of 6, maybe in parentheses, but in the key of E minor, it's simply the 5, 6, 5. And the difference between this leading tone, which is the leading tone to E minor, is that it's part of a dominant seventh chord, and here we have a leading tone to the 5th scale degree, but that one is part of a diminished seventh chord. But so you're looking for those leading tones always to determine where you're going. And then the other thing that you can think about, and this is going to be something because we're going to talk about tonicization and modulation at our next class, and these examples are good examples of that because we have a progression. So we went from 1 to 2, an applied chord to 5. So 1, 2, 5, and kind of back to 1, but then it changes course at that moment. But the 1 followed by the 2 or the 2, 6, 5 followed by the 5 is quite normal. What you can always do is insert in between one of these chords is an applied chord. So for example, this 2, 5, 1 in the key of G major is a 2, 5, 1 in the key of G major, but the 2 chord is preceded by a dominant seventh chord which leads to the 2 chord, so that you can have these extra chords in there, these chromatic chords, applied to the diatonic progressions that you might expect. All right, I'm going to make a separate video of the Verdi. This is long enough.